I think I'm not even entirely sure actually that I am alive. I may actually be an AI construct in the metaverse. I'm not sure.
There we go. So welcome everyone. Lisa's talking about
Having a breakdown.
adventures of traveling.
Microsoft Outlook just keeps opening over and over. Go away. Tormenting me.
Yeah, it's hey Rack. Yeah, my brain is fried. I've had a long day and I got another long day lined up tomorrow. So we actually don't have an agenda for today. So I have no idea how this is gonna go. We've both been very, very busy.
We could talk about burnout. We'd be really good at talking about burnout. You could actually watch burnout happen live on this podcast.
These are the signs you look for.
Emotional. I might cry at any moment. You might just see me cry. Like, might happen.
I might just walk off and just go, fuck this. I'm swearing. I don't swear on these things. Apologies.
It's gonna be a good one. It's gonna be one of our best episodes yet. What happens when two individuals who've had no sleep for weeks try and put together a podcast? You're about to find out. Lucky people.
Yeah. Actually, it is a good topic to talk about because I think there's many avenues you can go down based off burnout and the industry where we are. I think one of the challenges we face as an industry is we are often short on resources, as well as overburdened with stuff to do. And let's face it, our work is not all daisies and rainbows and that. It's mostly doom and gloom and the world's going to end type thing. So that itself can also play its part where it's often resulting in talking about doom and gloom and nothing really exciting and happy and cheery things. Go like, yes, this attacker group is after us, yay! So yeah, it's an interesting one. I don't know how many people we have online. So if you are on, it'd be great to get your input as well. But what are your thoughts, Lisa?
I think it's just this time of year as well, because we've had a whole year where, let's be honest, things have gone bad. Like, attacks are up, ransoms are up, hacktivist group activity is up, supply chain attacks up. There's a lot of, like, if you look at like the investment we put in security and it goes up like this, and then you look at the number of attacks that are successful and it also goes up like this.
Yeah, we're winning.
Smashing
it's called job security.
And I think it's that. And I think it's also, it's that time of year. We're all tired. We're all overworked. November is notoriously busy because for me, certainly, like my company is busiest month of the year because my clients all have board reports that have to go in. So everything has to be done in order to do that. So everyone's tired. It's cold. It's miserable. It's dark in the UK. And I think it just becomes very easy, doesn't it, to feel kind of a bit fed up and overwhelmed, maybe?
Yeah, and it's raining. I think certainly the weather doesn't help. It's just
always
gloom and raining and miserable, and I see another storm's on the way, so yay, it's just wonderful. Just so much to look forward to in terms of
I think it's just one of those things, isn't it? And I think generally speaking, we feel a bit better in the new year.
I don't know about you, but my new year is looking to start off with a bang.
Yay! Well, everyone does. Totally. We get Trump. Trump's starting back up in, I think, January, right? I don't know. So
I'm gonna fun times at work. I mean, joking aside, I think it's good in one hand. I'd much rather be busy and have a lot to do. than be bored and sit and worry about my job. I mean, I do realize like a lot of people have lost the roles of the past few years. So at least in that aspect, we can consider ourselves lucky.
Yeah.
But in the other aspect, in terms of things like burnout and that is real when there's so much going on, and it's not just work wise. There's also people who have their personal lives that they need to get on with and all that. So
Yeah.
and world events, which is always lovely to read. I got to stop reading the news. I really need to stop.
I know, honestly. I mean, like, I open the news and it's like, oh, France's government has fallen. Like, Germany's government has fallen. This has happened. Oh, by the way, have you read that this person has just been called a war criminal? And it's like,
yeah.
However, one piece of good news, not related to cyber, but it is good. Namibia elected their first ever female president this week. So occasionally there are some good things happening as well.
Kudos to her. Wish her all the best. Yeah, I'm just trying to think. So that's burnout. As you can see, we're struggling. Yeah,
we're so burnt out. We're struggling to talk about burnout.
First sort of burnout is
it's like Burnout Club. The first rule of Burnout Club is you don't talk about burnout.
I'm just trying to think of recent stories. I think I saw one around the Transport for London. That fallout from that attack is pretty significant. There's significant costs associated with that. I think they also didn't handle the situation or scenario well. Wasn't the case, no data, and then all of a sudden, oh, there is data, and that kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think actually when you look, it's quite interesting, isn't it, when you look at the fallout from some of the attacks. I mean, the British Library one, to my knowledge, I think they're still reeling from that as well with recovery, and it's a long and painful process. And I think that's the thing people don't really realize. Like, we front load a lot of this and we sort of talk about GDPR fines, which I think are probably more of a myth than they are a reality in the UK. And we talk about other things, but realistically, like the cost, the big cost is like this lack of operation that you have after an attack, in the sense that, you've got to recover systems that may be completely irrecoverable. You may have to completely rebuild things, which might take weeks, maybe months. How do you do that? The cost of that is enormous. The cost of digital forensics is enormous. The cost of, I mean, most companies' disaster recovery plans will cost an absolute enormous amount of money.
Yep. And that's even whether they're equipped, and ignoring the cost, but also the resourcing to go along with it. Because
yeah, exactly.
As much as the vendors would love you to believe their magic shiny tool will solve all the problems, even the best tool in the world still needs humans helping, installing it, configuring it, tweaking it, maintaining it. It's a lot of time and effort, and I think that's where a lot of people fall short. They don't realize that even the best of tools still needs a lot of attention and care until the AI overlords take over our responsibilities of that. I think it's going to be a very long time until that happens. I hope so. We don't want AI robots deciding to do things and take over our lives.
God, I went to a conference in Dubai, and they had this really cool setup that was really interesting, which was that they had this woman on stage who was presenting, and then they had these two kind of curtain things, and behind one was sat a human, but the voice was modulated through a computer, and then behind the other one was an AI. And you had to basically, as they were talking about this, you had to try and guess which one was the human and which one was the AI. And I went in there super cocky, being like, I'm gonna like nail this, this will be fine, absolutely not a problem, I'll figure this out in 2 seconds. Honestly, I sat there and I flip-flopped for 40 minutes. I had no clue which one was which. And it was really fascinating because they were talking about ethics in AI and machine learning and stuff like that. and how we apply ethical models to AI models and AI training models and so on and so forth. And like, you honestly couldn't tell the difference between the human and the AI in terms of the responses. It was quite interesting and scary.
It is kind of, I mean, what was it recently? I saw AR stuff coming about in terms of videos and uh, phishing type things. I can't remember what it was. Oh, well, I can't remember. But there's loads of instances out there where uh, I phishing and all of that is a problem. I think AI, in terms of ordinary companies and um, infosec people, I think phishing is probably the next big thing where AI is going to be a big problem. Where they just need a few seconds of your CEO or something, and then you get a very legitimate looking request to hand over your banking details or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you work out if that's valid or not? I think we've spoken about this before, and um, the different ways that you can kind of combat that. But yeah, unfortunately, AI is not helping with our burnouts and our workload. That's
No,
that's
we're using
obvious.
it to create dumb photographs that we post on Twitter. We're not actually deploying it to take some of our workload so we are less close to burnout.
Yeah. Well, actually, if anyone is on the call, or podcast or whatever you want to call this thingy, um, you
Whatever
if
this
you,
is called that we're doing here, this group therapy session that we're in.
it'd be cool to see if you use AI and if you find it useful or detrimental or whatever. It'd be cool. But yeah, AI. What else is going on? Oh yes, we can't forget the 2025 predictions.
Oh, God. More of the same, but bigger, better, and more problematic. That's what I'm going for. Honestly, like, I've said the same thing every year, and it's like, it's not really changing. It's just the same stuff, but getting substantially worse.
Yeah. Crappy passwords. We see the same crappy passwords. Yeah, no.
Hacktivist. Oh no, DDoS isn't a thing anymore. Oh no, wait. No, it is. It's still a thing. Oh, ransomware, that will finish. No, that's gone up.
Breaches,
People
vulnerabilities,
have joined this podcast
patching.
and they're like these two really depressed security professionals ranting.
Yeah,
You're welcome. You are welcome, each and every one of you.
yeah. One thing I do hope that does get fixed in the new year is the NIST vulnerabilities. So I forgot. I think it was around March time frame. There was a cut in resourcing on the researchers, well, employees at NIST who would review the vulnerabilities that came in. So that's had a actual massive detrimental effect. So things like vulnerabilities aren't getting a score associated with them. You had like junk coming in and not really being vetted. So when it came to assessing vulnerabilities, it made it very difficult and a lot more time consuming. The result is a massive backlog. I think backlog is slowly being dealt with. I hope so. But that's something I really hope that gets dealt with in the new year
Mm-hmm.
is getting that backlog down and making sure that we get the right information on vulnerabilities because vulnerability management is not easy. It's very hard and
No,
time consuming.
yeah, that's true. And I think one thing I'd like to see actually is actually quite an interesting one. It was brought up by a client of mine about regulators. And one of the things, because what I do, in case you don't know, is I do sort of more crisis management, incident response side of cybersecurity. And one of the things that's really interesting, if you look at like regulators across the world and the amount of demand that they put on organizations that have had a breach in terms of update us, give us this information, give us that information, we want update on this, we want update on that. And the problem with that is it drains your resources. when you've got to handle an incident, but you've got to be giving the regulator all this data. And that's all well and good if the regulator is using that data in real time to do something. But if you're just harvesting data and not doing anything with it, it would be better to kind of, I think, be a bit more realistic with allowing an organization to handle the incident and report back to you every few days or once a week on what's going on and what the impact is, because actually, yeah.
I get what you're saying. They should probably wait for the end and then get all the information, while people can go off and deal with the fallout, and then get the additional information.
Yeah.
There's a question in the stream. I can't make. Is the alternative to NVD looks like SPOF if they don't resource them? I think that's asking if there's an alternative to the NVD. So here's the problem: like the NVD is kind of the de facto thing. There are some slight side things. There's like GitHub advisories. They have, and I think they might have some of their own ones there. Certainly tools like Black Duck have their own ones in that, but by and large, NVD is the vulnerability source. So there's no real alternative. There are services that you can pay for that add some kind of extra scrutiny and research in the vulnerabilities. But those obviously cost money and they ain't cheap. So for many organizations, that's probably not a possibility. The other problem is some of those things don't feed in, or a lot of those things don't feed into your things like your vulnerability scanners and that. So you still got to then take the time and effort to take the vulnerabilities from here, apply this other filtering or whatever, and then work the vulnerabilities down. So it's a bit of a mess at the moment, to be honest.
I think it's interesting, actually, across the board. There's some interesting things that have come out over the last, I would say, couple of months. So I would argue that actually a lot of what we do in security is a bit of a mess. I don't think we're largely aligned. We don't have we're not seeing as much success as we should be seeing for the amount of money that's being spent. Okay. The data is showing essentially that we're kind of losing the battle a little bit. So that indicates that we need to reassess how we're doing things and think about things perhaps in a slightly different way, because it's clearly not having quite the effect we want. And what's quite interesting, and I see this on LinkedIn a lot in the last few months, is like this. There seems to be in the cybersecurity community at the moment quite an obsession with kind of what I would call treading into other people's areas a little bit and making it about cyber. And I had this great conversation with my friend Reg, and we were talking about it the other day, and we were saying, like, we haven't really got our house in order yet, but yet we feel like we need to start encroaching on other areas, like, for example, personal physical security. Well, that's the realm of close protection individuals, and there's lots of physical protection experts that have nothing to do with cyber. But when we start saying, well, we should be involved, we should maybe run this, and it's like, well, we're not really running cyber. Maybe we do that, and then when that's going really well, we can maybe say, hey, do you want some help with your problem? But like,
some nerd telling the big butch bodyguard how to do the job.
It's true though. It's like, who do we think we are sometimes as an industry? Like, let's just do what we do and try and improve that, and then we can maybe encroach in other people's areas. Someone said to me the other day, oh, we're the only industry that's ever done OSINT. And I thought, but investigative journalists have been doing OSINT by a different name for much longer than cybersecurity's even been around.
We just turned the phrase, I guess.
I make it ours, and now it's ours. It's like, I think we just need to be careful, because the problem is we're always chasing after this next exciting thing. But the reality is, as we've just said, attacks are going up. Successful attacks are going up, not down. Until we start seeing, I mean, even a curve would be better, but at the moment it's basically like a straight line. until that starts to flatten or hopefully go down, I just think we need to exercise some caution in the other industries we try and inject ourselves into.
Yep. People in glass houses and all that kind of analogy type stuff. Yep.
It's
I agree.
And yeah, I mean, I'm incredibly tired. I've done an awful lot of traveling in 2 weeks. That is just, I mean, anybody with half a brain would realize that that would have just been a stupid thing to do, but I did not realize that. So here we are. I'm alive.
You're alive. That's the main thing.
It's half the battle right there.
So, but I think you got some time away, don't you?
Yeah, but I've kind of turned a lot of that into work, unfortunately. But yes, I do have some time away, sort of.
Well, at least hopefully you get some time away and relaxation.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to take the last couple of weeks off at the end of the year, but yeah, we'll see how that goes. Yay.
Yay, cybersecurity is great. Everyone should join this career. It's fantastic.
It's magical. It's unicorns and rainbows.
To put it into perspective, how magical it is, it's 8:30 here in the UK. I'm sitting in my office. The office building has nobody else in it at all apart from me. And for dinner, I've consumed a glass of water and a banana because I forgot to do dinner. So...
Well, I've not had dinner either, so you've had more than me. I think I've.
You know what we should do? Sean, I've just had this brand new idea. We go on LinkedIn as high performance influencers with these 3 simple tips.
Have a glass of water and a banana a day. Job done.
Stop.
You look like crap. Yeah, but I'm a high performer. I have a glass of banana.
I'll have you know I'm a high performance individual.
So anyone watching this podcast, please do not take health advice from either of us because we apparently.
Well, we're not dead yet, which means we're wholly successful at keeping ourselves alive. And you actually keep other little people alive. So actually, you're very successful.
I will say, I had a blood test just recently, and my results came back, other than vitamin D, because, Scotland and vitamin D are some other things. But other than that, I'm all good. Which I was quite surprised about, but hey, I'll take it.
Yeah, that's good.
But I think it is important, like eating properly and that. So one thing I actually found out a lot that helps a lot is you buy those it's prepared meals, not from the shops, but like the one I use is Prep Kitchen, which is actually proper food that you just shove in the microwave, job done. It's not like the processed one. I think they cook it their side and then put in the things and ship it out. So that's a win. It's not that cheap, but you pay for quality, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the one thing I really struggle with because I travel a lot. And so what I've noticed is my diet just is horrendous. I mean, you're like, oh, here's a sandwich. I'll eat a bit of the sandwich. And you haven't had a proper meal for 2 weeks sometimes. And then you're sitting there with your hands shaking and you're like, why am I feeling so? Oh, it's because I've just eaten coffee. That's why. So I think it is really important. Like nutrition is really important. I spoke to someone the other day. This was about physical training for ice climbing, but it applies to everything actually. And they were saying that in order really to maintain a really healthy body that allows your brain to work well, your body to work well, and to have longevity in your life, you need good sleep, good food, and good exercise. And you need all 3 for it to work. And then I look at my life and I'm like,
well, that's me screwed.
Miracle if I make it to 40.
That's me screwed.
Don't sleep. Diet's atrocious. Do some exercise, but
is walking the kids to school exercise?
Yes. Well done, you.
Yeah, they live miles away, miles and miles away. I only live 5 minutes away from my home.
Yes. It's crazy, isn't it? So that was one of the topics I saw on LinkedIn actually, was about like health and well-being and people being, I think there's a lot of posts recently about people being close to burnout or feeling close to burnout, which is probably from a lot of different reasons, isn't it? But yeah.
Yeah. I think it's just in general. I think it's a longevity thing because this year I've not done much in terms of conferences. I kind of just feel deflated and just like, ugh. I try to think of a topic and I'm just like, I can't. I try and I can't. And then try to apply for like RFPs and that. I'm just, I can't. Maybe it's because of another kid or I don't know. Um, it's just, I think I've seen it in other people as well, um, where it just feels things are just a bit flat at the moment across the
Yeah.
industry.
Yeah. And I think it's been a tough year because, you know, I think there was a really good panel actually. So I chaired the CSO Security Summit in London last week. And there was a really good panel talking about an issue we've discussed a lot, which is about the community when things happen and how toxic it can very quickly become. And there were two really interesting examples that were leveraged. The first was I think it was TFL attack that you mentioned
Yeah.
earlier, and people getting on there and like sharing memes and sort of winding everybody up. And there's not a lot of kindness in that, because that's probably the worst in your, if you're talking professional life, that's probably the worst moment of your professional life, dealing with this, right? It's very stressful. You're not going to see your kids. Your relationships are going to go south because it's so stressful. You're not sleeping, eating, whatever. And the last thing you really need is your colleagues and your peers to be making fun of you, attacking you, promoting posts that are attacking you, or your organization. So that was the first example. And the second example, which was quite interesting actually, was the CrowdStrike incident that happened in July. And obviously that wasn't a cybersecurity incident. But what was really interesting was the cyber community, instead of kind of standing up and providing reassurance to the public and providing reassurance to people about what could happen and what to do, we went the other way, and we had people on the news, cybersecurity professionals on the news, saying like, well, people will die from this will cause deaths, like seriously sensational stuff. And I said to someone, like, actually, our role in this situation is reassurance. We should be getting out into the public and be like, don't worry, guys, they're doing everything they can. We're going to sort it. Like, don't panic. Don't withdraw your cash or whatever it is that's happening. You know, let's just keep a lid on this and try and handle it. We do the opposite. We go, let's make it absolutely enormous. Let's make it the biggest disaster we've ever seen. And it's just, and then we're like, well, why are we so burnt out as a community? Well, because we live in this ridiculous world.
Yeah. Well, I think it's multifacets to this. So one, I think it's I, I'm gonna just say it, the celebrity lifestyle. You know, getting on the news, the likes, the follows, uh, those kinds of things. And I'm not certainly not saying everyone's like this. Don't get me wrong, but I think there is an element in that in some,
Yeah.
and that's where things get like a good example. And this is where it really, really, really riled me up. And the person actually got a bit of flack for it, and quite good, rightly. It was there was a I don't know if you remember a few months back there was that Linux vulnerability with the printer. One who can get a printer working on Linux? Firstly, there's a challenge number one. but but joking aside, like this person was hyping it up and had all these things and it's going to be huge and all of this, and it's like, yeah, it turns out if you're a user on Linux desktop, not even a server because it's not enabled by default. If you're a user on a Linux desktop and you have to target the user while they're printing and all this like stuff, and it's like it's nothing really.
Yeah.
Like in the scheme of things, there's far worse things out there, but it was all that hype, and it's the hype to get the likes and the follows and all of this kind of stuff. That's what it really felt like. Maybe it wasn't, but
Yeah.
and the person got a lot of flack for it, and I think they rightly so, because the absolute hype around it was like pretty significant.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think there's the element of that. I think it's also we want to make ourselves feel we have a purpose. So
Yeah.
by having all this stuff, like you see, you need us. Without us, you'd be screwed type thing. And let's face it, some cases there would be, but not always. So it's like a sense of belonging and purpose. And then I think it's just the excitement around it. It's something cool. Yeah, we get to talk about it and deal with it, and that's great. But we need to be pragmatic about it. I think that's the key word,
Mhm.
pragmatic.
Yeah, we definitely need to calm down a little bit, because I think there's been so many situations where things have happened, and not only have people made it into something it's not, which is one outcome, but also like in the CrowdStrike situation, there were people going out there really early on saying it was a Microsoft problem. You don't know that. You have no data on that.
Where it happened, the same thing happened on a Linux system a few months prior. But yeah, Microsoft problem.
Yeah. and and they were, and I just think that's the other thing. You see, like now I used to do it many years ago, and I've learnt my lesson big time on it, that when a breach happens, I'm holding off saying anything, and hold off for actually maybe a day or two until something has come out and been released, usually by the organization actually, about what's actually happened, because so many times people go definitely ransomware, and it's not. So again, what are you really doing there? What are you achieving with that goal? And it was a really interesting panel, because they were talking about, like, is the concept, we always talk about the cybersecurity community, but is community basically just an imagined state that doesn't really exist? Because it seems to be that we're a community up until the point where there's likes to be had, in which case we throw anybody under the bus and kind of go for it.
There is a community. The problem is humans. The problem is people. There's always going to be bad apples. There's always going to be people who take advantage of others and
Mm-hmm.
try leverage that. And that's where I think a lot of the problem is. And we're never going to solve that. You're never going to prevent that. That's just
No.
humans. Um, so it's about how we as a community try. I don't want to even say wall ourselves off, but like how do we deal with those people? It's maybe a better way of saying it.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's too much. And you saw that with the X thing as well, right? There was a mass exodus from X, fine. But people who were deciding to stay on X were being attacked. Well, okay, some people I know are on TikTok, some are on Facebook and Instagram, owned by Meta, some are on X, some are on Blue Sky. Like, whatever you want to do with your social media, provided it's obviously legal and reasonably moral, crack on, do it. You want to be on X, be on X. It's none of my business what you do. But yet we have this kind of, like, some people in the community seem to have this kind of status maybe in their own mind, where they get to decide what other people are doing with their own lives on social media, which seems, it's odd, isn't it? But I think you're right. It's humans, and people blame the social media platforms, but I've always said all social media platforms do is turn the dial up on
Yeah,
human behavior. So if it's depressive, it will be really depressive. If it's angry, it'll be really angry. That's all it does. It doesn't create emotions. It's incapable of doing that. It's an application. It has no ability to do that. It's human beings and our interaction with it that's unhealthy.
yeah, I entirely agree. I mean, even when there was a mass exodus for Mastodon and all of that, we saw it and we see it still on Blue Sky. Like there are douches on all of those platforms and they are harming it for other people. So it's not the platforms, it's
No,
the common factor amongst all the platforms. People.
yeah, it is. It is people, and I think that's uncomfortable because it's actually impossible. Probably impossible anyway to solve. So
It's how do we deal with it best? That's the thing. We're not gonna, as I said, we're not gonna eliminate it. We're not gonna solve it, as you said. So how do we deal with it so it's manageable and tolerable? Is maybe yeah.
I think one really interesting thing that I read, which was talking about, it actually was talking about, I won't name the politician, but a certain slightly unsavory right-wing politician in the UK. And they were saying he'd made a claim somewhere that every time someone who hated him retweeted him, he got paid more money, basically. And this was actually looked into, and it does in fact transpire, and this is the oddity of this, that the more times you're screenshotting someone's tweet, sharing someone's tweet that's toxic, what you're doing, and this is on every platform, I'm using the word tweet, but it's on every platform, you're amplifying that content. So you're doing their work for them. So even if it's really bad and you're saying this is ridiculous, this guy's a whatever, ultimately you're getting that person seen by so many more people than if you just ignored the post. When you interact with it, like, and you see it on LinkedIn as well, people will share it and they'll say, oh, this is ridiculous. And all you're doing is amplifying the content that you're saying is repulsive.
Yeah. So I think there is, don't disagree. It's how you deal with bullies. Like, the best way to deal with a bully is to simply ignore them. There's nothing that infuriates them more. Or be better, be kind to them, and that even just turns the dial right up.
They block you when you do that.
But I think I do get what you're saying, but there's also an element of I've shared things where it could have been amplified, but I think sharing things to call things out is another angle where we also have to take some sort of stance sometimes. Um, like when someone produces misinformation, they could be sharing it, so you have to try correct that. So there's a certain someone on LinkedIn that I'm not going to mention names, but they go on about DNS and TLS. People will know who I'm talking
Everyone
about.
knows.
And I don't share his things on LinkedIn. I share that on Twitter. So maybe that's a way we could combat that. Don't share on the same platform, so therefore they don't get the additional thing. And also, I block out his name in that, so there's no way to tie it to that person. But it's trying to make sure that there's some level of scrutiny and accountability for the things that they say. This is why I think with free speech, things like free speech and all that kind of stuff, it's not that you shouldn't be able to say what you say. You need to be held accountable for what you say. So if it's something really nasty and derogatory and that, you need to be held accountable to those actions. You're free to say that. I mean, anyone can. No one's stepping your lips shut, but you need to have actions for your words and that kind of thing. And that's kind of the thing I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Where if they say something wrong and completely wrong, especially if they're doing it for their own personal gain, they need to be called out.
Mm-hmm. But I think also we need to engage with people in a better way. And if they choose not to be better, then fine, they can show themselves up. But the problem that you have if you get into this combative mode is that actually you erode the ability to debate ideas completely, because I won't post something out of fear that I'll just get attacked. So if I have an idea and I think this is a cool idea, it's a bit kind of out there, it's a bit different, but maybe this is something we can explore, I would never post that on social media because it would just be a free-for-all. And I think that's a shame, because in an industry like ours, where we do need more ideas and we do need people to feel comfortable to challenge other people's ideas and say, actually, that's not going to work because of this, we have to calm it down, and it has to be something that we can have disagreement, but it's respectful and it's completely okay, and ideas come out of it. But if you go on the attack, and you see that, I've seen this on Blue Sky recently, so it happens on every platform. I posted something, the guy didn't even read the full post. He just read the first post, didn't read the follow-up posts, went on the attack on me about how maybe I should go and learn something about AI. And then I commented back and I said, well, did you read the rest of the post? Because I said this exact point. And he went, oh yeah, sorry, and then deleted his comments. But like, okay, fine, you delete, but why, again, if you want to engage with me on this, then do that. But you don't need to You don't need to start name calling. It's like,
Yeah.
it's so exhausting, which comes back to burnout. It's so exhausting because it's like a constant bar fight that you're in.
Yeah. And I think similarly to your point, this is another angle where we get, and it all ties in together. It's weird how it all just ties in together, where people don't read beyond the headlines,
Yeah.
or they only read that very small snippet and actually not go in further, um, and read into the facts and try think things through. They're just, and I think it's maybe something to do with our society, information freely available. I don't know. I'm probably getting old. I sound like an old grumpy. Those kids these days. Back in
You
my
look
day.
at these podcasts. We were so young and fresh faced when we started this a couple of years ago, and now we're like, the kids these
Damn
days don't
clouds.
know.
Um, but I do think it's the I can have stuff what I want when I want type thing, and you're not prepared to go through, read a bit more, try understand things a bit more. That instant gratification type thing. I know this is becoming awfully philosophical.
I know. This is what happens when you're exhausted. You become immensely philosophical. This is why we're high performance individuals, remember, Sean.
Yep, those bananas keep us going.
Watch
Um,
out for the LinkedIn
yeah.
post tomorrow.
Talking about LinkedIn, I just want to make sure. So we got a few comments from Michael saying, my kung fu is better than your kung fu in the internet Twitter age. Totally agree. Everyone's trying to outdo everyone else, and dog eat dog, dog, whatever that saying is.
Insert saying here.
And they getting salty comments on his gaming content always created more engagements. Sad, but really, yeah. It's kind of the case why newspapers don't sell good news; they sell bad news because bad news gets better publicity for them. So
Yeah, and I think you're you're also dissuading, like, when we talk about companies being honest about problems that they've had either through vulnerabilities or disclosures, or perhaps they've had a breach or whatever it is, and we want that company to be honest and come forward and admit what's happened. But then we also, when they do that, we crucify them. I mean,
damned if you do, damned if you don't.
exactly. And actually sometimes you end up in the same boat. So I think if we want more discussion and we want more people to have conversations in this community, we need to do our bit as well and actually listen as opposed to just attack.
Yep, totally agree. Be kinder, be gentler. Again, I need I need more food. Although my food has consisted of I think a cookie and Christmas cake thing today. So I'm winning in the health.
You went down the sugar route hard.
Internet. But yeah. Can't think of any. What other news is going on? What else is going on? We approach. Well, no, we're not approaching December. Oh my god,
We're
we're
in
in
December.
December.
It's too late. It's already happened. We're in December.
We know what happens in December, don't we? Please. Last year was relatively quiet, so please, all security researchers, please take time off. Go do some other stuff. We don't need some new massive vulnerability to come out or some other fiasco.
Please not. And if we're going to send updates out globally, if we could just check those updates first, or maybe like batch deploy them so we don't wipe, like the entire planet out, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
And let's not do it the Friday before Christmas. Please, can we not do anything that let's just it's tempting fate. And whoever does that, I take back my comment about not trolling people.
Another comment. Yeah. Thanks for joining in. Get your kids to bed. might have to tuck myself into bed soon. Just shit. But yeah. Yeah, hopefully we won't have any surprise gotchas this year.
Yeah.
But on a lighter note, let's try it off on a lighter note, a happier
Yeah.
note, and all that.
Let's end on a light note.
So every year there are a few challenges, things going on in terms of companies putting like fun challenges and events on. So one of them is the Try Hack Me Advent of Cyber. They put it on every year. It's more beginner level, so they cover different things from like SecOps, OPSEC, even AppSec, and all that. So if you are looking for some fun little things to do, I suggest you go look at that.
Yeah.
There's also Sans KringleCon, which your little elf, I think it's still an elf, your little elf bouncing around the screen, walking around and going challenges. There's also speakers in that there as well. So that can be fun. I think for both there are prizes up for grabs as well. But I find it's a good way, especially if you're in like an office and that with a team, and you have like your office party and that, a very disruptive day. It's a good way to like maybe start in the morning when you know the day is going to be disruptive, have a bit of team bonding, team exercise, and have a bit of fun. You aware
Yeah.
of any others, Lisa?
Any good news?
Any others? Any of those other challenges?
No, not for Christmas. The one I would say to look out for though, there is one that's done every year by Swedish Cert that's really good, and they promote it, and it's great to get a community behind it. So follow them to go and check out their CTF stuff that they do, because it's all good fun, and again, it actually supports organizations that we should be supporting as well.
Yeah. So go have a look at those. Both KringleCon and the Try Hack Me things are free, so there's that as well, which is always a bonus.
Especially before Christmas.
Yep.
Otherwise, I guess we're ready to we'll do January.
Yeah.
2025.
Jeez, already.
Yeah, we'll do January. I will be somewhere in the world, so it will be an adventure.
Yep, definitely. I will be still in my room. Hopefully, I'll be alive and withered away or run away or something. But we'll do January. We'll hopefully have a better agenda for January.
And be more well, had some sleep, for example, might also help.
We'll see about that. I still got sleep, but yeah, it's been great having everyone on. Thanks for those who interacted, and hope everyone has a really good Christmas and a great New Year. Stay safe. Fingers crossed for no exciting times on the lead up to Christmas and that. And we'll catch you in the new year.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.